In this WrestleTalk news, WWE Trolls AEW following AEW Dynamite, the locker room's reaction to Satnam Singh's polarizing debut from Dynamite, plans for Roman Reigns, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos, because yes, it's more of me this week, and I'm on the podcast later today, and I'm doing the news tomorrow, and the podcast tomorrow. It's the Pete week. Say well done Pete in the comments and not, well done that other guy that we won't talk about.
Support WrestleTalk!
The talk of the wrestling world this week was Satnam Singh's ill-advised debut from this week's episode of Dynamite, where he closed the show with his spooky lights down, lights up debut and beat up Samoa Joe, who had just won the Ring of Honor TV title from Minoru Suzuki. Singh aligned himself with Jay Lethal and Sonjay Dutt, and while this isn't necessarily the worst idea on paper, it taking place in an overrun for Dynamite after an awesome title match without giving Joe the chance to celebrate with an anticlimactic reveal of someone the audience doesn't know, added up to not the most well-received segment. It was bad, basically. The morning after, WWE put out a top 10 video. Top 10 most dominant in-ring debuts. Seems innocent enough. It featured debuts such as Bobby Lashley, Yokozuna, Kane, Ronda Rousey. Oh, what's this little one in the number 1 spot? Oh, The Great Khali. WWE put The Great Khali's debut at the number 1 spot, which surely can't be a coincidence after Dynamite's reveal the night before of another tall man who also uses the head vice grip thing, which, side note, might be my least favorite move in wrestling? Maybe? That or the merry-go-round, I can't decide. Regardless, nice little dig from WWE there. But as most fans had speculated upon the debut, this wasn't just a debuting new character that AEW wanted to push because he's a great wrestler, there was an ulterior motive too. Grapsody's Will Washington, reporting on Fightful Select, said that Singh's debut was done intentionally after the Discovery Warner Media merger as a big angle for Eurosport. Discovery owns Eurosport, which is also All Elite Wrestling's India TV partner. Furthermore, the report goes on to say that AEW is expecting huge social media traffic as a result of the angle, which will see Satnam Singh and Sonjay doing promos for the Indian market and helping bridge a gap between AEW, Eurosport, and Discovery. Well, there definitely was a lot of social media activity following the debut, but I don't know if it's what Tony Khan was looking for. So while we've seen a few attempts from the likes of WWE trying to capture the Indian market, most notably with Jinder Mahal a few years back, Christ, this move wasn't just for the Indian market, but also to try and appease their new owners in the merger of Warner Media and Discovery. You can see the logic behind it, but also, as someone messaged in to say on yesterday's AEW Dynamite review on the WrestleTalk podcast channel, if you want to try and capture the Indian market, why not portray your Indian wrestler as a babyface? But while fans were pretty universal in thinking this debut was either not good or straight up bad, how did the AEW locker room react to it? Fightful Select reportedly spoke to many members of the AEW locker room, none of which thought the debut was executed well, but many of which believed that the business side of the decision was a good one. It was also reported that many of the wrestlers they spoke to echoed the sentiments from fans, in that the debut fell flat due to circumstances, from the positioning on the show to the lights off, lights on appearance, with one wrestler mentioning that doing a lights out entrance for an unknown talent isn't optimal. However, it wasn't all negativity, as there was some optimism from some with regard to the business move and expanding the Indian market, with one wrestler mentioning that if accelerating the market in India would help out their salary come contract renewal time, they're willing to accept a bad debut. In terms of what we can expect from Singh in AEW as well, one wrestler who's been training with him mentioned he's been doing good so far and has been training every day for the last 8 months and has some tricks up his sleeve that will surprise some people. It was also noted that everyone they spoke to mentioned that Singh has a good attitude and a willingness to learn and has been working hard. Of course, these views represent the people Fightful specifically spoke to and not the locker room as a whole. However, when every wrestler they spoke to seems to echo the same sentiment as the fans, it seems fairly unanimous. And now, hot tag to Ollie real quick.
Before we get on with the rest of the episode, I'd just like to say a huge thank you to this video's sponsor, Bosley, America's #1 hair restoration experts. Learn how you can get a fuller, thicker head of hair like mine and a $250 gift card by going to bosley.com/WrestleTalk or by clicking the link below. Over the last few years, I realized it was taking me longer and longer to wash my face. Turns out I was just losing my hair. So I did what any normal person would do. Shaved my head for charity in a humiliating experience after last year's WrestleMania, and then went and got a hair transplant. Of course, mine was done in the UK. But if I was in America, I would have contacted Bosley, who offer the latest in hair restoration technology, with both surgical solutions like the hair transplant I had, and non-surgical solutions too, like scalp micropigmentation, low-level laser therapy, and FDA-approved medications from Bosley RX. Take it from me, someone who's been there, done that, the best thing to do is to actually talk to people to find out more information. Bosley has that sorted with free in-person consultation and video consultations too. So book one in now to find out how you can get a fuller, thicker head of hair by going to bosley.com/WrestleTalk or click the link below to get your free information kit and a $250 gift card. That's bosley.com/WrestleTalk, and you can also get a free cost estimate and find the right solution that works for you. The sooner you take action, the more options you will have. Hair that hair.
So with all the hype surrounding the Overrun, a pretty stacked show featuring Minoru Suzuki and Samoa Joe, CM Punk and Penta, Keith Lee and Swerve Strickland and Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, did it all help the viewership and ratings for Dynamite? No. Not really. This week's episode drew an average of 977,000 viewers according to Showbuzz Daily. This is down slightly from last week's episode at 989,000. The rating for the 18 to 49 demo was 0.37, down from last week's 0.38. This was the lowest total viewership in just over a month for AEW since the post-Revolution Dynamite, and the lowest demo rating since the week before that on the Revolution Go Home show. This is down quite significantly year on year for Dynamite, though last year's episode was an exceptional one, as it was the first episode after NXT moved to Tuesday nights, so naturally would have had more people checking out the product. Meanwhile, over in WWE, I still don't think we know what Roman Reigns is doing with his Uwu Championship. Undisputed WWE Universal Championship, that is. He said on Raw, wait until SmackDown. On SmackDown he said, I don't know what I'm doing, but Usos, go unify the tag titles on Raw. And then he wasn't there on Raw, so who knows? There might be a match with Shinsuke Nakamura at Backlash, but regardless, he reportedly won't be dropping his Uwu Championship anytime soon. According to WrestlingNews.co, despite Drew McIntyre being advertised for matches at live shows against Reigns throughout May, there are no plans for McIntyre to win the title. Furthermore, they note that the idea is to push him on the level of names like Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino. As of today, there are still no plans for him to lose the title anytime soon. Some in the company have speculated that he will hold the title through next year's WrestleMania. The hope is that The Rock will come back for one final match, and by that point, the company would start pushing Reigns as the greatest of all time. So, then what? After Reigns likely defeats The Rock at next year's WrestleMania, if they can manage to get The Rock back for it, then what? Who do you have left to challenge Reigns? You're already running out of people who can challenge him, and you have a story with Cody Rhodes who wants the world title. Are you going to hold off on Rhodes winning until after next year's Mania? I do not feel optimistic about the next 12 months of WWE programming. But maybe the women can carry the company for a while instead. Recently, there were reports of the internal listing of the top men's babyfaces and heels on Raw, and now according to PW Insider, we also have a list of the women's wrestlers too. According to the report, Bianca Belair is the top babyface. Yeah, that makes sense. While Becky Lynch is the top heel. That also makes sense. Carmella and Queen Zelina are listed as the other top two heels, which really paints a stark picture of the Raw women's division. Perhaps a starker image, though, is that the number two babyface right now is reportedly Alexa Bliss. You know, Alexa Bliss. The woman who was off our screens for months, came back in a bunch of therapy segments that led nowhere, returned to Elimination Chamber having exactly the same gimmick she had before she left, and then vanished from our screens again, which she herself has mentioned publicly she's frustrated with. Number 2 babyface. Number 3 babyface is Rhea Ripley, who will most likely be turning heel on Raw. That is some bleak stuff for the Raw women's division. Thank you for being awesome pledge hammers on Patreon, the British Bulldog Philip Boy J. Smith Jr., and the reigning, defending, undisputed first WrestleTalk Super Chat donator heavyweight champion of the world, Jeremiah Golder. You can get your own shout out and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. The reported number 1 heels on Raw right now are husband and wife Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, both known for their outlandish outfits and probably more outlandish characters. Becky Lynch recently was interviewed by TV Insider, where she was asked if she and Rollins ever coordinate or discuss their outfits ahead of TV appearances. We don't really discuss it. We show each other things and then are like, that's freaking wild, that's awesome, I'm jealous of that. He has some items in his closet that I want to alter and tailor and wear myself because they are so badass. He is the same, although it is a lot easier for me to alter his stuff than him to alter mine. Honestly, Lynch reusing Rollins' outfits but altered for her sounds really cool and a nice little nod to each other without pairing them on screen as they've done in the past. Sounds nice. Meanwhile, Jon Moxley showed up to a wedding in his regular clothes. It was recently the wedding between Corey Graves and Carmella, and the guests were a who's who of wrestling, including Bayley, Liv Morgan, Natalya, Baron Corbin, Renee Paquette, and her husband, Jon Moxley. However, Mox has caught some flack in a viral photo that shows everyone dressed up nice for the wedding, and Mox in his, Well, it's Mox's outfit. But don't worry, there's an explanation, as Renee explained on the Throwing Down with Renee and Misha podcast. He was flying in from Boston, and he had to fly to Miami because there was no other flights to get into where the wedding was. And then he had to take an Uber from the Miami airport to where the wedding was, after flights already being delayed. He was already crunching time. My guy showed up to the wedding with his suit, with his shoes, I had the whole thing. I had to find one of the bartenders. I'm like, can I hang this somewhere until my husband gets here? And then he's texting me and he's like, I'm gonna be there in 5 minutes. And I was like, cool dude, well, guess what? The wedding is starting. They're walking down the aisle, it's happening. As Carmella's walking down the aisle, he's at the entrance with his luggage dressed as so, and as everybody stood to watch the bride walk down the aisle, he was able to sneak in beside me to watch the wedding. So that picture was right after the wedding actually happened. And yeah, he was wearing that. He did change afterwards, I will say. And on the subject of Renee Paquette, Celeste Bonin, formerly known as Kaitlyn in WWE, recently appeared on Renee's The Sessions podcast, where she opened up about her mental health struggles, how her time in WWE f***ed her up, and learning how to process her feelings and thoughts later down the line. I left wrestling because I thought I was gonna get fired. I felt less and less relevant. I had so much shame. I gained all this weight and my body was giving me every signal that I was just not okay. Emotionally, mentally, I just had so much hatred for myself. I had so much resentment towards myself, and that projected outwards, and like I was in self-destruct mode. So I just asked for my release on a day. It was like a really shitty day. I was so disassociated with so much from that day because it was just so painful. A reminder, as usual, to check in with your friends and family that even if people seem okay on the surface, they may have something else going on underneath, and to take mental health seriously. If you're struggling with any sort of mental health problem yourself, make sure to head to WrestleTalk.com/support each other, where you can find a list of mental health organizations globally that can try and help you. Support WrestleTalk, support each other.
Such a great show.
Loved
1
it.
hour and 55 minutes. It's the perfect length for a show. It cut off at exactly the right point, and nothing happened after that 1 hour 55 point. What a great show. What a great night of wrestling.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you here. Luke's back next week.